với một phần chủ đề rất quan trọng của sự kiện ngày hôm nay, đó chính là Leading Without Ego, Embracing Reverse Mentorship and Digital Intelligence. Tạm dịch là lãnh đạo không có cái tôi, đón nhận sự cố vấn ngược và trí tuệ kỹ thuật số. Chúng tôi xin được trân trọng giới thiệu đến toàn thể quý vị quan khách một vài thông tin sơ lược về diễn giả đặc biệt của chúng ta như sau.
Xin giới thiệu ông Christian Chua, diễn giả truyền động lực, tác giả 7 cuốn sách ảnh hưởng lớn. Ông Christian Chua là một diễn giả truyền động lực quốc tế được công nhận đến từ Singapore với hơn 30 năm kinh nghiệm truyền cảm hứng cho khán giả trên toàn thế giới. Các bài thuyết trình đầy năng lượng của ông được trình bày tại hơn 40 thành phố, nổi bật với những hiểu biết sâu sắc và những nội dung khơi gợi suy ngẫm. Phong cách trình bày cuốn hút của ông khuyến khích khán giả đón nhận những góc nhìn mới mẻ, từ đó giúp họ phát triển cá nhân và sự nghiệp thông qua sự thông thái và thay đổi tư duy đột phá.
Thưa quý vị thân mến, Christian cũng là tác giả của 7 cuốn sách thành công, bao gồm những tác phẩm rất được yêu thích như là How to be a Success Artist, làm thế nào để trở thành 500 thành công, Making a Fortune While Shipping Coffee, kiếm bộn tiền trong khi nhâm nhi cà phê, và The Referability Factor, yếu tố tạo nên sự giới thiệu. Và ngay lúc này đây thì chúng tôi rất muốn hỏi tất cả các quý khách tham dự hội thảo ngày hôm nay, quý vị đã sẵn sàng để chào đón Mr. Christian Chua chưa ạ? Welcome on stage, Mr. Christian Chua.
Thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. If you don't understand, you put on your headsets. So, I'm Christian Chua, and first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to your very lovely city. I travel around the world. I've been to spoken at more than 40 cities around the world, and coming to Hanoi is definitely the highlight of this year. In fact, it's the close of my entire calendar for 2024. So I guess we saved the best for last. I'm very happy to be here. Your city is so charming. It's so romantically nice. Lots of history. But then there's so much evidence of progressive growth and development. So I'm very impressed. I've taken notes. I'm going to bring it back to Singapore. I'm going to share with the people what I learned. I'm an international speaker for over 30 years. I know I don't look that old. In fact, when Ms. Strang asked who was in Gen X, I didn't dare to put up my hand. But I'm 57 years old. Oh, don't look 57? Would you like to know how to maintain your youthfulness? Say yes. Yeah. So be very athletic. Every weekend, I watch football. Did that joke land? Okay. So, I'm going to share with you, I'm not from the HR space. I'm a human behavior expert, and being in more than 40 cities around the world, I speak to business leaders and I learn very fascinating things. So for the next hour, I'm going to share with you a lot of nuggets on the things that fascinated me, which I felt might be very interesting for a HR seminar like this. Okay? So one of those things I created is called Mind Shift, or simply put, paradigm shift. Because when you come to a seminar like this, you just don't want to agree with the speaker. It feels good, but you learn nothing. You want to be provoked. You want to say, hey, I never listened to that thought before. Let me think about it for a moment and see whether it works for me or whether it works for my organization. So I've got hundreds of thought-provoking mind shift nuggets. Today, I'm going to share some of the good ones. So the first story comes from my speaking engagement in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. There were 4 speakers, and I thought it was just another international speaking gig, only to find out that the speaker after me was a high-level astronaut trainer. Whoa, that would be interesting. An astronaut trainer. It's a she. And she came on stage and she shared about the procedures. And one thing that really struck me was, she said, well, I train more than 200 astronauts and will select a handful of maybe 10 astronauts to put up into the International Space Station. If I hear any astronaut bad-mouthing another astronaut, that astronaut is cut off from the program immediately. Wow. I thought to myself, that's really strict, isn't it? If you hear somebody bad-mouthing another person, you're out of the organization. So I asked my audience, on other occasions, if that happens in your organization, if you hear one employee saying bad things about another employee, how does that work for you? Well, in Singapore, the CEOs often say, by lunch, half of my workforce will be fired. Okay, so there's a lot of bad mouthing here and there. You know, Singapore pressure, very competitive, very pressure pot type of organization. But then why in NASA it is so strict? So we asked that question. And you know, the answer is this. In whichever organization you are from, maybe you're a small business that only operates in Hanoi, or maybe in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, or in the larger part of your nation. So you think in the national level. But there are bigger organizations that think regionally. You have many offices in Southeast Asia. That's regional. And then there's a global, international reach. You're all over the world. But that's probably the maximum you will think about globally. But for NASA, they have to think galactically. You know what I'm talking about? They think they anticipate and they plan for things that we don't have to plan. For example, if they go in space and aliens exist. It's something we laugh about on Earth, but it's very real to them. Suddenly, a UFO comes and they say, what are we going to do? If there is a solar flare where the sun goes poof, and there's a surge of energy, what do? And what about things that they haven't even discovered when they are in space? That is why the criteria is so strict, because as long as you're in the team of the seven men in the International Space Station, you cannot think of me, you must always think of we. Because each individual astronaut has their own unique skill set. And if one breaks away and do not think like a group, the whole mission might just fail. So when they select the candidate, they are so strict in the attitude and the mindset of that 7 people in the team. So throughout this 1 hour, I have nuggets like these. And as if you think along, say, can that work for my organization? Can I be more strict in when I hire attitude? When I do the interview, should I place a bit more emphasis on attitude and not just skill sets? Okay, so that's the first one for you. It's about NASA and the training needs. I think Ms. Strang did an excellent job in encapsulating all the data, so I don't want to repeat what she said. I'm so glad our interpreter is spot on, and I understood everything that she said. So I think I want to just narrow down to 1 or 2 points. The early days that the boomers, that's my father's time, they stay in the workforce based on experience. They always say, I have more experience than you guys. And then my turn came, we use education. We say we have this degree, we are graduated from there, and we try to displace them with our paper. Okay, so what's happening in this millennium and Gen Z is digitalization. They say we know AI more than you. Generally, that's the trend. Okay, again, we should not generalize that all Gen Z is like that, or all Gen X is like that, or all Gen Y. But for now, we just generalize first before I go into my talk a bit deeper. So we know that the younger workforce behaves a bit differently. Director Trang already said they want this, they want more passion, they want more work from home, they want more flexibility. Can we understand why they behave like that? Again, I'm from the human behavior space, so I like to explain to you. So when you do your hiring, or when you approach such people, you got a better insight. So why do you think they behave differently from us? So this is a chart where we talk about the adoption of online platforms. How long do they take to get 1 million subscribers on board? We all know Netflix. 1999, when they started to be very active they try to get you to sign up. And people were like, no, I go to the video shop and borrow the video or the DVD. And it took a very long time for people to believe that I should pay Netflix subscription to watch the movie. But eventually they hit 1 million subscribers globally. 1 million subscribers in 3.5 years. 1 million is very little. It's 1% of the entire Vietnam, isn't it? Very little. But it took 3.5 years. But subsequently, as the years go by, this accommodation platform, Airbnb, took 2.5 years. Twitter took 2 years. Foursquare is a restaurant app, took 13 months. Facebook took 10 months to get 1 million. Dropbox took 7 months. Spotify took 5 months. Instagram took 2.5 months. ChatGPT took 5 days. And Threads took 7 hours for the first million, and in 5 days, 100 million. Okay, the progress is not linear, it's parabolic. Boom! It's incredible. The speed of change is incredible these days. Our property prices in Singapore can, like, in a wink of an eye, within 12 months, you can see it. Tremendous increment. You guys know, yeah? Yeah. The food prices just goes up. The change is no longer gradual, it's very fast. So we're going to talk about this thing called the speed of change. And that is what they are so used to. You pull out any movies made in the 1980s, you'll find them so slow these days. You play any movie these days, that the director will cut one scene to another scene within 7 to 12 seconds, or else it becomes very boring. It means I show you this angle, within 3 to 8 seconds, I'll show you another angle, and they go chop, 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 because the mind cannot take this kind of slowness anymore. With the advent of TikTok and short videos, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and 3 seconds, you're gone. So you try to be a content creator, and your history. And that's generally what's affecting the young people, okay? So on education, so I'm speaking as an international speaker and consultant, but I'm also speaking as a father of 3 children around that age group, 17 to 22, 23. And the education, I ask you, is this. Instead of going to the university and take a degree for 3 years to get 1 degree, is it okay to replace by many small micro learnings? What do you mean by micro learnings? You know, as adult, you don't go 3 years degree courses anymore. You go for 2 weeks accreditation, 5 days master class, 3 days something, isn't it? You could go for your MBTI course or your Strengths Finder. It's just a few days. Okay? So I ask you as HR, is it time to be a little bit more flexible if the younger generation came and said, I don't have a degree, but I have many micro-learning certificates? There's no right or wrong answer. You got to figure out whether it works for you. Okay? Micro-learning. Oh, but certain degrees are still very important. Yes, they are. Certain degrees like medicine, law, you need to go through those degrees. But there are certain degrees that become obsolete immediately after you graduate. That's complaint of some of my friends. The moment they graduate, oh man, all these are obsolete. They have to relearn it. So, you know, you can even go to Harvard for 3 months and take a short course, and then you have graduate from Harvard. So nice, huh? Graduate from Harvard with a degree in Harvard. So these are called micro-learning. So here comes a question that no father in Singapore would like to hear. And my son said, Dad, can I take a gap year? In Singapore, when you reach after your college or your pre-university, you go to the army for 2 years. And then when you come up, you're supposed to go to university. Everybody's supposed to do that. My son did really well, and he's probably can get into the National University of Singapore, which is the top 10 in the world. And then he drops this bombshell and said, Dad, can I take 1 year off? Okay, so typically as a parent, you will freak out and you say, no, education is so important. Get the degree. Whatever you want to do it later. At least there's a base, there's a security. Isn't that what we say? Fortunately for him, he has me. And I was cool about it. And I say, tell me your plans. Tell me your plans. What you need to know is the answer. Why did he ask that? If his answer was, I want to rest for a year, I want to travel around, I want to sleep late, then no. But his answer was, he actually did very well in the social media space. In fact, he made a lot of financial income, amassing more than any of his peers. And now he thinks the university is going to disrupt this momentum. It's like you tell a football player, go university, don't play football now. When you're 30, then you play. Cannot. And they will be too old for that. Right? Congratulations on Vietnam for that recent win. I saw the game. It was excellent. Singapore plays tonight. Oh, I wish we get the same results. So he said, I want to spend this 1 year to develop and see how far I can go with this because it's still hot. And at the end of the day, if I can get a financial benefit, an advantage compared to my peers, I could even start to do investment and be ahead of the curve. It's just a different route that he wants to take. And if I don't make it, I will go to university. If I do make it, I may ask for another extension, another gap year. And at the end of the day, he said this. He said this question, if I took the university degree now, put it aside, and do my social media after that, by the time I need the degree, it might be obsolete. Why don't I do what I want, and when it's time, I'm more mature. You know, adults learn better than teens because we are more mature. He said, I'm going to make it because as an adult, I can learn better. I'm more disciplined, and the curriculum would have evolved into a more dynamic and more advanced curriculum. And I agree. Okay? In a few more slides, I will show you a video which my youngest son did. He visited with his elder brother. That's the one that asked me this question. The Google office. I do not know whether they have permission to show this. I asked him many times. He said Google didn't mind. So you're going to have the inside tour of Google Singapore. Okay, what you're going to see is it's all about playing. It's not about working. You're going to quite be amazed. So I've cut the video from 8 minutes to 2 minutes so you can see the inside of Google in a moment. Okay? Okay. The other thing I would like to talk about is called over-regulation. As I was in my hotel room looking down in the junction of the traffic junction of Hanoi, I'm fascinated and I'm impressed and I'm motivated. Although you're very famous for your traffic junction where everyone drives at the same time, it's organized chaos. You don't need regulation. The guys will find their way. Somehow I look fascinating. Fascinating. This is something I want to talk about when I go back to Singapore because there's so much regulation in Singapore, we forget how to think. The government thinks for us, this is what you should do. This is the traffic light. Stop, go, stop, go. Hey, I say this because I'm in Vietnam. You think I dare to say this when I'm in Singapore? No. Okay, so I want to tell you, there's too much regulation that when there's too much regulation, the citizens don't know how to think because everything is thought for them. But if you bring this into your organization, it could be the same. If there's too much regulation, you stifle creativity, you stifle innovation. Okay, so There are companies out there like 3M and Google and Procter & Gamble. They reward you for trying and failing. They rather you try and fail than didn't try at all. Okay, so that's one thing you might want to talk about. Now, over-regulation, there's this industry in Singapore is even more regulated now. Being a financial hub, as you know, lots of banks in Singapore, financial genius of Southeast Asia, they keep putting on regulations. Now, there's this industry called financial services, insurance. Okay. Previously, you take five days to 2 weeks to get your license to sell insurance. Now they say too many scams, too many misrepresentation, too many this, too many that. So more and more exams. It takes up to, listen, 8 months. 8 months for you to get a license, to get into an industry that you're not sure whether you're going to succeed. After 2 or 3 months, the candidates say, forget it, hack it. The job offer came from you guys. I'm going to start job immediately. End of the month, I'm going to get a salary. This one, I'm going to slog for 8 more months, and I'm going to not even sure I'm going to succeed in that career. And you know what? Recruitment is hell right now. I've spoken in the insurance industry for more than 3 decades, 30 years. I've seen it, how it changed. I'm a sales motivator. It's tough. It's getting tougher. Okay? And that is what overregulation is all about. So the next video, you will see my son, 2 minutes on YouTube. I shorten it to 2 minutes. What I would like you to see is how much entertainment Google gives to the employees. That's the first thing. The first thing you see is that Google, the host that brought them around, he comes out of the office with a champagne. You guys ready for the tour? Office hour, drinking a champagne. Okay, and when you see at the canteen, the food is free. And then there's performance, like what you saw just now. Performance, all these within office hour. Let's go. Oops, sorry. Where's my video? Was my video accidentally deleted because you thought it was blank?
Hello everybody. Today I got the chance to visit Singapore's Google office campus, and I gotta say, this is one of the coolest offices I've ever seen in my life. Well, I won't bore you with the details, so I hope you enjoy this video of the Google office tour. So, this is our tour guide James. Alright, there is a Google store in the entrance of the office that sells Google Pixel phones and a variety of merchandise. Where are we going? Whoa! Is that the Pixel 11? To the Google canteen. And as we were walking there, I was just admiring at the architecture of this office because, man, it is beautiful. And something I found pretty funny was that they named every single floor and sector a random town name in Singapore. That aside, it's time to have some food at the Google canteen, which they named it Shield. So this is the Google canteen. We're gonna have some food right now, even though we just started the tour. And there's some performance going on downstairs right now. Is this an office or a hotel? So this canteen serves buffets at almost any time of the day, and Google employees are allowed to come here whenever they want and eat whatever they want. In addition to the already really large canteen, there is also an area with a bunch of board games and books to entertain yourselves if you don't want to eat the free food for some reason, which I don't really know why you would choose to do that at the Google office. And here we are now at the arcade room, also fully equipped with a pantry. There were a handful of arcade games and also just regular games, and you guessed it, they're completely free for all Google employees. Yep, a bouldering center in the office, completely free to use. And also, another pantry next to the bouldering room. Just a heads up, you're going to be seeing a lot of these as the video progresses because, I mean, Google really cares for their employees. So they're a really high-tech meeting room, and possibly the most unexpected thing I saw at the Google office. There's an escape room in the Google office. Why is this here? Why is there an escape room in the Google office? As we continue to explore this office, we eventually looped back into the canteen and entered another games room at the side of the place. Yo, if I want it, I would not want to go home. And just to add on, I wanted to point out how amazing the work culture is over here. I mean, everybody was just so chill and friendly with each other. It didn't even feel like an office. And James also shared this news with us.
Like 4 o'clock, like my manager asked me to leave and not like work overtime.
Anyways, this area had a table tennis corner and also these interesting looking work pods, which looks like it came straight out of Science Center. And now we're going to be heading to the rooftop garden.
Wow. Impressive. Mind-boggling. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Took him a lot of effort to get that permission. But now the scary thing is this, my youngest son, who has not gone to the army yet, this is his first glimpse into a corporate office. I don't think that was a good idea for me. Yeah? That means he goes in there, oh, this is how working life is going to be. You understand that? How is he going to work in a normal office? Maybe they only offer him coffee and tea. His first impression of an office is this. Oh, my goodness. Okay. You know, one thing I found out, the Google's employees don't get paid a lot. But there's a whole string of applicants who want to experience the Google employment experience. Oh my goodness. I'm not saying that you need to follow this. I'm sharing with you what I've seen out there, and you see what works for you. You tweak it accordingly to what kind of workforce you want to attract. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, as we move into Tesla, Tesla's interesting too. So while we were about to change the family car, the two boys that you saw, those are my kids, keep insisting on buying a Tesla. And I said, is it the EV car? He said, no, it's the EV plus the Tesla. I said, what about the BYD? No. What about the BMW? No. They kept insisting on the Tesla. Being a Gen Z, we were pragmatic, and when we were discussing, and we say, maybe we'll get the BYD. And they say, meh, you know that word, meh, nah, it's not going to impress us. At the end, we thought about it and we bought the Tesla. But what I was more interested is, what on earth is Tesla's mission statement that is so attractive to the millennials and the Gen Z? And as I skim through the mission statement, they say, when you drive a Tesla, you get a taste of the future. You get a taste of the future. See, the mission statement, which is what I'm going to talk about now, it's so important. Okay, it's a taste of the future. Now, another thing I want to point out is Tesla do not believe in advertising. Elon Musk doesn't believe in that. Number two, this is mind-blasting. Tesla's sales people do not get a commission. I've trained a lot of big car companies in Singapore, Mercedes, Toyota, Lexus, Suzuki, Chia. I trained them all. Every single one of them has a commission. Yet, Tesla doesn't have a commission and is one of the best-selling cars in the world. So how do they do it? You see, the mission statement is so important that they want to hire people only if that same people aligns with the mission statement and believes in a product. I don't pay you well, but you enjoy working in the company. Let me give you another example. In Singapore, one organization that believes in that is our Singapore Zoo. As you know, Singapore Zoo is one of the best in the world. And you know what's the criteria before you can work in the Singapore Zoo? You must love animals. Simple. You must love animals, because if you don't love animals, how would you be able to clean the cage, to feed them, to nurse them when they're sick? So as long as you love the animals, at least your mission and our mission aligns. And you know, one more fascinating thing, I like animals and I wanted to join as a volunteer in the Singapore Zoo. Volunteers gotta pay. When do volunteers gotta pay? You want to volunteer? It's a privilege to be with the animals. You pay a subscription to be a volunteer. That's where you get quality people. It's where you get quality people, people that totally align with the vision. I'm going to repeat this a few times. I'm going to repeat one more time. If your vision is clear, you're going to get the right people. You're not so worried about attrition rates. You're not so worried about them demanding this and that. There's no passion, there's no alignment. I don't even know why I'm here. Okay? You get your vision statement very, very clear. Now, so that's the part of the observation I have shared with you. And now I want to share with you how you grow as a leader. At the end of the day, you want to come to a seminar, you just don't want information. You want organizational growth, you want personal growth. How can you grow while sitting there? Does that make sense? Sound good? My mission now, after 30 years, is always this. As I come here on stage to speak, your quality of life should improve. That is my mission. As I speak, I give you tips. So when you learn something, hey, my quality of life improve. So as a leader, is this. You see, we try to be as good as the young people in AI, but there's no way we can. You work maybe 20, 22 days a month. I work 10 days a month because I don't have speeches every day. I've got 20 days to learn. And no way, even with that, I could catch up with the young guys in terms of AI. As leaders, you would love to learn how to do AI, but that's not your primary job. Do you know what your primary job? Not just HR, yeah, you got your primary job, but if you're a business owner sitting here, you know what's your primary job? Your primary job is to make corporate decisions. Isn't it? To lead the organization, to say yes, to say no, to develop, to invest, to open new branches. That is your job. Your job isn't to compete with these young guys who, these days, when they are born, they already got technology in their hand. Immediately as babies, they already know how to, okay, you don't understand this joke. They know how to use the phone. Does that make sense? Okay, so now how do we synergize this based on today's theme of intergeneration unity? I would like to share with you another chart. And this chart talks about how many employees it needs to generate $1 million in revenue. In 1986, 1988, it's approximately 8 employees to generate 1 million in revenue. Due to technology, it needs now 2. 2 people to generate 1 million. I'm sure it will drop down to 1, and then it will be 1 person generating multi-million in income. And it's definitely everything to do with technology and AI and nothing else. It's not about manufacturing, but it's employing AI in manufacturing. Because AI increases productivity. Those of you who use ChatGPT, you already know. What's the biggest problem? Sentence structuring. That means I take so long to form a sentence. But with AI, clean this up for me. Okay? What used to be a 4 hours proposal takes me 20 minutes these days. Fantastic. So that's what it is. Now, having said that, the majority of the treasure is in the youth, the young people who are just so good at it. So I want to share with this thing called reverse mentorship. And maybe as HR, you have really heard about it, but I want to give you a simple spin to this and how you can actually reduce the attrition rates. Reverse mentorship is asking the young people, what can you teach me? It takes a lot of ego taming, pride. Put your pride aside and ask your young employees, what can you teach me? But to make it so less awkward, I can share with you a technique. Once a month, get the young employees and say, you have to present to management the latest findings. They become the speaker. You know what? That is where they get the purpose in your organization. Wow, CEO is going to hear me. Wow, CFO is going to hear me. So they will be so hyped up for 30 days before their next presentation. They will do more research. They will talk about Palantir. They will talk about SoFi. They will talk about NVIDIA and AMD and everything that you need to know, your research team. And they do it willingly. They do it willingly. And you know why they get so excited about it? It's called the recognition phase. Remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? That's what they need. They need that recognition. Okay, so these are the benefits when you do it to them. First of all, you bridge the generation gap. You learn from me, I learn from you. And because you are willing to learn from them, they respect you more. And when it's time for you to teach them, they say, there's two ways. There's two ways. I respect you because you respected me. You drive through innovation because it's coming from downwards. A lot of young people have technology. Can you imagine that my son is feeding me information that I could use for my personal stock investing? He doesn't know that it's part of it, but okay, what's up with NVIDIA? You think AMD, the chip's going to be good? How long do you think Anthony Nodal is going to do this and do that? And they just share so easily, but they didn't know that I could make those kind of financial decisions based on that, which even your Wall Street analysts might not even know. Okay? And the third one, of course, I'm talking about is when you have this employee engagement, then the attrition rate is going to be less because it's fun working for you. It's fun because I have that one-a-month platform where I share and the CEO comes and say, good job, boy. Well done. That was very useful. Wow, this kind of satisfaction cannot be described any other way but this thank you, the pat on the back. Okay, that to me, it's a very powerful reverse mentorship clue I want to share with you. And on a personal side, I want to share with you another concept called anti-ego. It's something I created last year. It has been received with so much reception in Singapore that I sent it to the International Property Organization to copyright this terminology, anti-ego. Maybe within 6 weeks, it will be a C instead of a TM there. And what anti-ego is to put aside your ego, not just in leadership, but in your daily life. I'm going to explain to you in a moment, okay? What anti-ego is. Anti-ego is not allowing yourself to be controlled by toxic emotions like anger or insecurity or easily insulted, or you thought your respect has been challenged, or you thought that your dignity has been challenged. Allow me to explain further. That's you, and that is your ego being caged, so you don't act on your ego. But what are you caging? What are you caging actually? There are two things that ego loves. Ego always wants to be right. So when you are corrected as a HR director or a CEO, how did you feel? As a speaker, we are always prescribing advice. Do you know when we receive feedback, it hurts, especially negative feedback? Oh, those were my early days. When I receive feedback, I try to be defensive or I try to explain. But these days I say, thank you. That was so valuable. That's all. People like you willing to tell me, then I can improve leaps and bounds. And once I started that, I really improved leaps and bounds. Okay? So that is what ego is. They always want to be right. Number two, they always want to be superior. And that's why I do not know in Vietnam whether you have road rage when two motorists quarrel. We have it all the time. I don't know, over a simple honking. What do you want? You challenging me? They come out of the car, they quarrel, they beat each other up, and then they're happy. I don't understand that. Okay? Put your ego aside. I didn't plan for this story, but since I see all the eyes still looking at me, I'm going to share with you one bonus story. So I have a real estate friend. He does real estate for one of the billionaires in Singapore. Not many billionaires in Singapore. So he was waiting outside his office and he heard the billionaire CEO scolding his managers, and he was frustrated and he was very authoritative. It was a very tense board meeting. Then the CEO came out and said, come, let's go for lunch. And then my friend was terrified, seeing that fierce side of the CEO. So when he went into the car, on the road, there was a converging road. Now, when the CEO was driving this way, one car cut into his lane and showed him a very rude finger. So the CEO, rude finger, my friend was like, oh my, all hell is going to break loose. But the CEO turned, smiled, and said, sorry, you go first. And the car just went. Very bewildered, my friend asked him, sir, you were so fierce with those people in your boardroom, and now this nobody, you apologize and let him go? And he said, those people in the boardroom meant a lot to me. They are the movers and shakers of my organization. That guy on the road means nothing to me. Okay, I cannot waste one single second on a total stranger, stopping my car, quarreling with him, deranging my mindset, disrupting my emotions. I just apologize and I just go. That's anti-ego. Know which are your battles that you fight and which are the battles you don't fight. Okay? Are you still listening? Okay, are you enjoying this? Not many. Okay, never mind. 3 people. No, thank you very much. Okay, setting aside an ego does not compromise your authority, your dignity that you uphold. It's not about humility. It's not about letting your junior staff talking to you rudely. That is not anti-ego. Okay? Because when there is disrespect, you must put the young employee in place. While we are while we are open to hear from you, I think you need to respect the position of authority, which is I am the CEO. If we can get that correct, we can move on. So there's no compromise in authority or dignity. The compromise is this. When that person tells you in a generous, gracious manner, and you found out your old theory was wrong, will you be able to say, hey, you know what? I learned something from you today. That is what anti-ego is all about. Okay? Ego urges you to criticize others when they make a mistake. Empathy helps you to makes you help them, lift others up rather than put them down. Very often, we crush others to lift ourselves up. That's a very natural human behavior. So we go back to the astronaut. Sometimes because I want your position, I break you down. Anti-ego destroys your relationship. It takes a long time to build a relationship and it takes a moment to break it. Just because my opinion and yours don't agree, instead of letting it go and say, you know, our relationship means so much more than to continuously disagree with you. We agree to disagree, but you're my friend. That's what anti-ego is about. Having said this, I'm not asking all of you tomorrow to be super anti-ego. I think that would be not possible. But what I'm asking you is, from today or from tomorrow onwards, just try once a day. I assure you it's going to be fascinating. Once a day when you're about to respond based on the domain of your ego because you were hurt, your younger sibling offended you, somebody on the streets offended you, and you want to respond out of anger, remember this anti-ego and say, I'm sorry, did I hurt your feelings? What exactly did happen? And then you see how this turned out. And then you think, if I use ego, how it would turn out? And if I didn't use ego, how it would turn out? And I assure you, after a while, you say, this is fantastic. I'm going to adopt anti-ego all the way. Okay? You take ego out of your equation, you are going to prosper and you're going to succeed way, way faster. If we had a time, I'll go through all your previous incidents where your relationships were broken. But because we don't, you do it when the seminar's over. Go back and think, how many of those relationships were broken because of ego? Because you could have responded in a different way and you didn't. So the application on the workplace is awareness of your emotions, Be slow to respond, because when you're in the domain of negative emotions, very nasty things are going to come out. Okay? And what's the last one? Was there a last one? Just a second. Take care of the way you respond. Okay. So, good. I got about 15 more minutes, and I want to share with you another very powerful observation. So this is in Victoria, Australia, in a theme park called Sovereign Hill in the city of Ballarat. Maybe some of you have been there. It's a theme park where 200 years ago, Australia had this gold rush. And then a lot of people went there and they dug the gold. As you can see from this little water here, every day the tourists will come, and when they sieve through the water, they can actually find gold flakes. You know how every day they throw gold flakes in, just for the tourists. Every day they throw in. So it's fascinating. So my family and I stayed overnight, 2 days, just to enjoy the theme park, and they really enjoyed it. My kids really enjoyed it. But me, as the unrested mind, always look for interesting observations. I call that outdoor classroom. Everywhere I go, I say, what can I learn? What can I learn? What can I learn? And I realized one thing about this theme park, even from this picture, which is not mine, it's from the internet. More than 3,000 people walk through the theme park every day, and you don't see things like litter. You don't see a litter, not one single litter. And I was looking around, I said, how can this be? No litter. There are Singapore tourists, there are Japanese tourists, and we could drink water bottle and throw the caps or a sweet wrapper, and there wasn't. On the second day, round about closing time, about 4 o'clock, I saw a litter. And I told my eldest son, son, finally, I saw a litter. And I turned around. It was there a moment ago. It's gone. And my son said, Dad, do you know what just happened? I said, no, tell me. The actor, there were lots of actors there. They were paid to act like in Aussie style. Good day, mate. Would you like to try some ballet? So they were acting like they were 200 years ago. When the actor saw the sweet wrapper, he bent down, he picked it up, and they put it in his pocket. And he continued acting. Again, that was mind-blasting. I wanted to understand the culture of this company. I went back, I looked through the internet. They won Best Theme Park in Australia for 5 to 6 years running. 5 to 6 years in a row, Best Theme Park, beating Warner Brothers, beating Universal Studio. And they are a not-for-profit organization. Not even a proper commercial organization, and they won Best Theme Park. So I keep digging in and I say, what is their corporate mission? And their mission was to tell history in a fun way. You want to join the theme park? Do you like history? Would you be passionate enough to be part of our team? When we went there, the cleaner was just, the actor became the cleaner, right? The cleaner was not just a cleaner, because when we asked him questions like, excuse me, sir, where is the toilet? He would say, oh, the toilet's over there. But you know what? There is a light show tonight. It's at 7 p.m. You shouldn't miss it. It's $69.90, and you can get your tickets from over that counter. And this went on throughout the theme park, that everybody was willing to do everything for everyone, every other employee, so that the theme park will be great. And the waiter was doing exactly the same thing. Have you got your tickets for the night show tonight? Everywhere we go, there's a little upselling, or there were a little bit of reinforcement marketing. That was what happened in this theme park. And that's why they became one of the best theme park for many years running. If you're listening to this and something struck you, that's what the seminar is all about. What are the few gems that I can grab from this speech and apply in my organization? And I tell you, one of them is if you are clear in your mission statement, you get the right people on board. My final story is about my eldest son. You saw two boys there. One talk, that was my youngest son, and the bigger one, was my eldest son. In 2017, I was invited to speak at an insurance event here in Malaysia, Genting Highlands, an arena called the Theatre of Stars. At that time, it was my biggest single audience of 5,000 people. I was well rehearsed. I was ready. I knew what I want to say. I knew where the punchline was. What happened next was I received a text while I was sitting in the audience. It was not a text I wish upon any of you. My wife texted to me that my eldest son sent her a suicide note. He said, "Mommy, I can't take it anymore. School really sucks. I brought a knife to school. And if that doesn't do the job, those buildings outside my school will end my life." When I received that text, the blood rushed out of my body. You cannot imagine what I went through. When you talk about this word called paralyzing fear, that is paralyzing fear. I was trembling. I was texting to my wife, "Where are you now? Can you call the school, tell the principal, get him locked up before anything happens?" And I was going frantically. And I said, "I'm about to go on stage. The MC is about to call me on board." And she said, "Do what you need to do. I will handle." And that was the last I heard. And the MC said, "From Singapore, Mr. Christian Chua." And I went on board. Can you understand the burden that I have on me while I'm on stage? Okay. I went into my speaker's mode. I began to speak. They were interested. They began to laugh. They were motivated. And after 50 minutes, they gave me a loud applause. They clapped. And I said, "Before I go down on stage, can I share with you something?" I said, "Did any of you felt that I carried a burden on stage? Because this is just what happened. I received a suicide text from my son. Most of the time, an overseas assignment like this one here today in Hanoi, it's lovely. I get to see a city. I bought some stuff. I'm going home, buying presents for my wife, my children. It's been an amazing trip. But this time, I said, I might just go home and I might just walk into my son's funeral." The whole audience went quiet and they were stunned. And I said, "There's a reason why I'm telling you this. And same reason I'm going to tell you this. Being a professional, which is me, is being able to perform at your best, whether you're in a mood or not." And I guess that's what you expect of your employees. And you can use the same statement. Being professional is being at your best, whether you're in a mood or not. Sure, our dog died. Sure, we lost some money in the stock market. Sure, we had a quarrel with some guy on the streets. But when you're at your role, be at your employee genius state, which is what I was. And another thing I share with them, during crisis like this, under pressure, we never rise to the occasion. I don't know whether the interpreter can get this. You never rise to the occasion. You fall back to the level of your preparedness. Okay, so the reason why I could still nail that presentation is because I was very experienced by then. I did more than 1,000 stage experience, and that's the reason why I can do that. Okay, so it's the same thing I want to share with you. So when I got down, people were already crying. There's a contingent of Filipino insurance directors. They came, they hugged me, and they said, "We'll pray for you, we'll pray for you. Go back and solve your problems." Oh, which I did. Okay, of course, my son didn't die. If you're wondering, you saw him on the video. He's how old now? 23, 24. He's very successful as a social media person. And he's okay with me sharing this story with him. Okay, so the two final slides as I leave the stage and welcome the other speakers. I want you to understand this word called openness. And openness is simply this: to entertain an opposing point of view, knowing that you don't need to accept it. That's what openness is. As leaders, as HR, when you come to seminars like this, sometimes you hear something different and you just say, wait, I'm not going to take a position. I'm not going to disagree with it. I'm going to go home and think about it. That's what openness is. Openness is the ability to entertain an opposing point of view without the need to accept it. Okay? So it's been such a privilege and an honor to have this stage here today. I know that we like to be world-class in many ways, but as my parting gift to you, what if I tell you, just as I'm about to get off stage, you can have a world-class something. Would you like that? A world-class something. And you know what is that world-class thing that you can have? It's having a world-class attitude. That immediately you can have. Thank you so much, Vietnam.
Một vị khách mời rất đặc biệt, bà Elena Chipalova, giám đốc nhân sự khu vực Nam Á Thái Bình Dương, tập đoàn Career.
Kính thưa quý vị thân mến, bà Elena Chipalova có gần 20 năm kinh nghiệm trong lĩnh vực nhân sự, chuyên về chiến lược nhân sự, chuyển đổi tổ chức, đa dạng và hòa nhập, gắn kết nhân viên, quản lý nhân tài và các hoạt động M&A. Bà đã làm việc tại nhiều quốc gia tại khắp châu Á, châu Âu và châu Mỹ, đồng thời thường xuyên diễn thuyết với các vấn đề tổ chức, bao gồm quản lý con người và lãnh đạo trong khu vực châu Á, Thái Bình Dương.
Hiện tại, bà Elena là giám đốc nhân sự khu vực tại Career, chịu trách nhiệm trong việc cung cấp định hướng chiến lược nhân sự để thúc đẩy tăng trưởng tổ chức. Trước đây, bà từng làm công việc tại công ty dầu khí BP, dẫn dắt các sáng kiến về nhân sự, đa dạng và hòa nhập, quản lý nhân tài, cũng như các chương trình M&A và chuyển đổi tổ chức trong khu vực châu Á, Thái Bình Dương. Dưới sự lãnh đạo của bà, VP đã nhận được nhiều giải thưởng danh giá với tư cách là nhà tuyển dụng hàng đầu.
Elena sở hữu bằng thạc sĩ quản lý nhân sự, bằng tốt nghiệp về quản lý vốn con người và bằng thạc sĩ vật lý. Hiện bà đang sống tại Singapore và với gia đình của mình và rất là yêu thích đọc sách, rèn luyện thể chất và du lịch. Và ngay lúc này đây một lần nữa chúng tôi rất mong muốn được nhiều quý vị chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau dựng thẳng lưng ghế, tinh thần thật sảng khoái và cùng chúng tôi dành một tràng vỗ tay thật lớn để cùng chào đón sự hiện diện của bà Elena.
Hello, Hanoi. I need to admit that it's not easy to speak up to motivational speaker. I actually have never done it. So I'll try my best to keep the attention going and really looking forward to sharing with you mainly from the corporate HR perspective on generations. Before I go into slides, I attended one lecture on generations, and the speaker turned to someone who is visually generation baby boomer. And he said, what do you value in the workplace? What do you want from your company? And the person said, look, I want respect. I may not be the most modern person, but I want to be respected. I still want a good pay because I have bills to pay. I'm not young, but I want to continue learning. I want to be engaged. Then the speaker turned to someone who is clearly Generation Z and says, what do you want from your employer? And the person said, I may not have all the experiences, but I still want to be respected for that. I want a good pay. I want a company to enable my learning. And then it started ticking in my head. Actually, they want the same thing. Regardless of generation, very likely people would want the same thing. As we heard today, research, it's probably that younger generation wants it now, whilst the generation that's a bit older is prepared to work hard and wait for that. It is also very likely, and that's what I'm seeing in the workforce, that young generation will ask for it, whilst those who've been around for longer would probably be more reserved not to ask. And from my experience working with Vietnam for more than 20 years, in Vietnam, a lot of employees will say, look, I'll work really hard. My manager will notice. I won't ask. And that's why I thought it's very important that we talk about intersectionality, not only in generations, but also of cultures, because that would shape us up. So I guess I'm pressing the right button. Okay, perfect. So I will quickly go through this busy slide. I thought it's very important that I touch on the point of holistic excellence, not only in generations. There are many, each of us is unique. And there are many things that we carry, and that's what makes us different. But before I go into depth, I wanted just a quick walk through D&I journey. Where we came from is diversity. It's binary. It's either young or old. It's either you're male or female. Where we had to work as HR professionals is to build awareness that the world is not binary. You could be young, disabled, a person of transgender. Does it make you unique? Yes. Do our leaders need to understand differences? Yes, and be aware. So it's a combination of factors that will affect individual and how they get engaged. And as HR people will know that engaged employee will drive discretionary efforts. Where we currently are, yes, we say that inclusion and diversity both are important, with possibly inclusion being more important. Many companies sort of realize that it's not a very Western concept yet. It's everywhere. So cultures, especially rich in cultures, Asia, do matter. A lot of companies form D&I councils, do D&I role maps, look for local role models, and leaders showing allyship. And where I guess we're going to is it's contemporary region, it's a contemporary country, and we are all, it's all our people. We're looking at data, and we are driving leaders to become advocates. Okay, so speaking about diversity and inclusion, this is what you will find interesting. I know that many of you work in multinational companies or companies with opportunities to work with other sort of countries. I picked up a few countries in the region. So what I did, I put into Google the word inclusion. For example, what does inclusion mean in Vietnamese? Then I took that exact word, put it back into Google, and said, translate back into English. And this is the picture that I had. Now, you will know better than me if it's correct in Vietnamese, but fundamentally, that's what we hear. So we say the word inclusion, whether it's generations or anything else, and people around the world hear it differently. So we are talking about curriculum that is not aligned. And we want to build a multi-generational, multicultural corporations, but fundamentally, we are talking to different meaning. There are different diversity strands, and I won't be going into each details, but they're fundamentally differences while when we're addressing in diversity and inclusion in different countries, we talk about slight difference where people may not feel included. And of course, if you look across the region, and especially sort of all of them will be relevant to Vietnam, is, as I mentioned, D&I seen as very US or Western concept. There are very little legal framework that mandates certain actions. For example, we do not measure participation of female in workforce in a mandated manner. There are very little external benchmarks. I tried my best to find some data on Vietnam. Perhaps it's available, but in Vietnamese. And there is a deep stigmatism. There is a deep stigmatism across many things. For example, I think in the Western world, you'll raise up your hand and say, I'm job log, you know, I have mental health problem, right? And talking about generations, I'll touch on mental health specifically, whilst in our region, it's very unlikely that people will speak about that. And there is a lack of awareness of certain diversity strands. And of course, there is a strong cultural influence, which I will cover that in the newer generation, it's becoming less and less. Example of such would be that generation baby boomers typically would be the ones that one working adult per family. Woman has to be staying home, looking after kids. That's why they're baby boomers. The woman has to stay home because she has many kids. And of course, that creates a whole range of opportunities that are ahead of us for the region. Why do we need to talk about generations? So there are factors, right? So I'm just calling out a few, which is external and internal. So there is increased life expectancy. I will give you a bit of statistics on the next slide, which means that today I heard statistics that Vietnam birth rate fell below 1, which technically means we're not replacing ourselves, right? So what's going to happen? Who is going to pay taxes to support high medical bills of those who are about to retire? We need to think, maybe not galactics, but we definitely need to think about countries. And there are fewer younger workers entering workforce again, because we're not replacing ourselves. And furthermore, they want to travel around the world. We heard about gap year, right? Then there is rapid digitalization and rise of AI. Whilst many jobs will go away, many more jobs will come. So if you talk about AI, I was recently at the Data Center World event in Singapore, and oh my God, how many more new jobs will be created? DINKs and DINK WDs. I'm not sure interpreter, but probably there's the same acronym in Vietnamese, but it's dual income, no kids couples, or dual income, no kids with dogs. So in Singapore, we have a new mall where animals are welcome. You can go to any shop, you can go to any place, and that's where you can bring your dogs. What we are seeing is young couples pushing the strollers with puppies in them, with dogs in them. They don't want to be burdened with kids. They want to have dogs because there is a pressure or maybe a human nature to care about someone. But this is what I'm seeing a lot in more developed countries, is what we call DINKs, dual income, no kids. Beautiful couples choose not to have kids, choose travel the world. And of course, there are internal reasons why we need to talk about generations. It's a conflict at workplace. Simple things as misunderstandings, egos, which obviously will impact productivity, and difficulty implementing change. If you think about people who are making corporate decisions, mostly generation baby boomers and generation X, are these people change adverse? Much more than generation Z, right? So when we implement change, we need to make sure everybody is engaged. And unless we sorted conflict, it will be very challenging. So I promised the life expectancy in Asia. You could see that whilst we have much more elder population, we're barely replacing ourselves. Here comes another challenge. This is average age in Asia. I'm using the same countries. Vietnam is still doing relatively all right, but this is overall country-wise. If I go into corporate world, and I did not manage to find enough data to put the numbers, and I was not sure how reliable they are, but I could definitely see at least another 5 years difference in the average age in the workforce. Look at Singapore. We're almost hitting 42 as an average age, right? So obviously with Australia very much reliant on migrant population. But if I look at purely locals, the number is late 40s. In Japan, is nearing 50, and you'll be surprised and probably explain why China allowed third kid is because China is nearing 40. Okay, so some of the statistics which I thought was quite interesting. So from HBR, I picked up that by 2030, 30% of all retirees will be living in Asia. And by 2034, older adults over 65 would outnumber those under 18 almost across all Asian countries. And by 2025, Gen Z is projected, and I was very glad to see the number 33, sort of to represent about 1/3 of Vietnam's total workforce. So if I look at generational, and again, it's a big topic and I'm looking at some of the time left, this is what, in my experience, the generational differences are mainly around. Strengths and assets, learning styles, perception of ethics, career planning, leadership style, use of technology, and information source. Where do they get the information source? So, for example, is it from influencers versus textbooks? Let me stay a little bit on this slide because I think for many of you this will be, now this is the world according to Elena, so it's not kind of AI generated. Feel free to ask me about any topic in more details, but this is where I think the biggest impacts will come. First, on the rewards and recognition. Corporate insurance plans. If you have dinks and dominating your workforce, and your insurance plans are heavily focused on covering kids, is it going to work? Or is there any flexible benefits that you need to provide? Mental health. Younger generation will not hesitate to say, I'm mentally strained, I'm taking time off. And we're seeing governments mandating mental health leave. Look at the for example, Singapore, we have our ex-president personally championing mental health, Madam Halima Yacob. Then obviously non-monetary recognition. Let me ask you this, or this is rather something I keep telling my leadership team. Nothing motivates employee than a manager following up the person and giving likes on social media. In fact, if the line manager is not doing this, which we know baby boomers unlikely will do, that will disengage that employee, right? So this is the simple, costless, and the most engaging thing that I could imagine. So again, how do you advocate and educate your line managers beyond monetary rewards? Talent and performance. There has to be organizational talent philosophy. Old philosophies that say that, the more experience you have, the highly likely you will be promoted. This philosophy has to be changed, right? We need to train line manager. We need to look at transparent, skill-based approach. Otherwise, you will end up always going to the same school of thoughts, in a generational school of thoughts. How many learning curriculums work? I'm sure that many of you know this, but fundamentally, how the good looks like, how the behaviors, how the talent philosophy is combined. Typically, companies will look at what it took top leaders in the organization to be where they are. What are some of the behaviors they exhibit? What are some of the career experiences that they had? And then they call it leadership expectations and try to kind of move it down the line. Is it going to work, or we need to change approach to our leadership development? And then learning and development. Of course, there has to be organizational learning culture because young generation, they are eager to learn. They learn every day. The problem they have is attention span. Today this topic was covered, is because of TikToks, because of Instagrams, they are not listening more than 5 minutes. How does it affect your learning your courses. I can give you my thought, which I'm trying to do in my company. I personally think that the future of learning is going to be Netflix style. At your own pace, your own time, push up notification, push up curriculums based on your interest or on your career. And this is where you can regulate the time that they need. And of course, leveraging AI, there are so many ways we can enhance our learning offers. It has definitely a big potential in outsourcing. Probably out of many HR areas, I see learning is the one to be outsourced the first, because new skills that are required are growing every day. We learned so many things during COVID: empathy, adaptability, agility, but our learning curriculums are not teaching the skills. Well, for young people, it's very important that leaders exhibit the skills, right? And of course, like I mentioned, new leadership curriculum. So this is my last slide, and I guess keys that I believe, I'm sure there are much more, to success in creating multi-generational harmony and engagement is first you as HR. Are you willing to rock the boat? Are you willing to shake status quo and be the mirror to the line, to line managers and your leaders? Second is leaders' involvement and ownership. Do they see the need to create multi-generational harmony? Are they vested in this? And of course, your line manager are the ones that affect the most is buy-in and participation. We spoke today about getting feedback. Are they asking for the feedback? Are they seeing feedback as a gift versus being defensive? Then there has to be investment and training of obviously organization and audited processes. Is there any bias in the process? Could it be that for one line manager, for example, all generations that are non-performing, right? So there has to be some audit trail and confidential feedback channel in case people do not feel included. Final one is, let's focus on what is strong in each generation, on not what is wrong. By doing that, I do believe that the harmony will be achieved. I'm just on time. Thank you very much.